Talking About Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by Steve Davis and David Olney, who've talked about marketing. More than 8,000 conversations have taught them something. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. Everyone needs external perspective. Through their 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. They explore marketing with curiosity, generosity, and the occasional gentle eye roll. They hope this becomes a trusted companion on your journey in business.
David, I've just got a logistical question to ask you.
At least it's not juridical.
Exactly. If I moved a few boxes and cases closer to where you are there on the table, you'll lose a little bit of space, but you'll still be able to, talk. Do you think that will improve the quality of your output?
I don't know whether it would make any difference other than the microphone will pick up strange echoes.
You've already blown my thesis out of the water then. Let's not even do this episode.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. These are insights for the whole person, not just the business operator. Oscar Wilde put it this way: the aim of life is self-development, to realize one's nature perfectly. That's what each of us is here for.
In the person segment, and then shortly after this in the principle segment, David and I are diving into a fascinating book. It's called Inside the Box by David Epstein. And the core premise of the book is how constraints are our friend. We, in this society, have come to a point where we think more is more. He argues less is more, in fact, bountifully more. He goes into some nuance on that point, and we're going to extrapolate that. And to me, David, the reason why it's the title of this episode, this little throwaway line he has stuck with me. If you are not engineering your time in this age, it will be engineered for you.
Yep.
On that note, before we continue, dear listener, thank you for using some of your scarce time to be with us. We're going to do our best to make it valuable for you. Before we dive into this even more, David, for some reason more than others, you were really excited we were doing a David Epstein book. Why?
Because his last book, which is called Range, all about the fact that we need more generalists who can see the links between specific areas and specific skills and specific insights, I think came out right near the beginning of my Masters in Strategic Communications. And it gave me great hope that taking all my experience of teaching complex problem solving and consulting on complex problem solving, that going and adding communications to it very much fit with his model of we need more really capable generalists. So it gave me hope that doing the hard thing would work well.
Interestingly to me, I have long argued, anyone who's sat through my workshops or been my client will often hear me say that having some sort of restriction or constraint is going to, in some way, coax out of us more creativity than we might otherwise have achieved. We might go into that a little bit more later. But if you're still cynical hearing me saying this, how can that help? How can constraints help? It actually is the closest we come to accepting reality, especially because our time is finite, our resources are finite, and the less we waste our finite resources of energy on superfluous, not core things, the better.
So one of the things when I had this total freedom, and stop me if I'm going on too long here, but it was an interesting experience for me, where I said, gosh, books are so consuming. It's so hard. It takes up so much of my life and energy that I'm not writing another one unless I find the perfect topic. So I start dipping my toes into all these topics. And I like I'm finding several things fascinating, but none's perfect. And so, like, picture me, I'm basically like on a dating app, but I'm going for book topics. I'm just like swiping and swiping. And I couldn't pick anything. Like, I kept thinking, is there something a little better? And then I read this quote by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who coined the term flow for the feeling of immersion in an activity. And he's talking about marriage, but you could sub it for any other word. It wouldn't matter. And basically he says the great thing about being committed by your own choice is that you can stop wondering how to live and start living. Like, it frees up this energy to actually do the thing. And I was like, man, this is what I'm doing with my topics. I'm just like wondering what's around the corner. That day I said, I'm really interested in constraints. I need some myself. I'm writing a book proposal on this. And of course, 2 weeks later, I was 10 times more interested in it because I decided to dive into it. And so that was the start of this process of me reeling back some of this excessive autonomy where, I joined the board of a nonprofit in my community. I started going to dance meetups so I could have embodied experience with strangers, all these things that kind of started adding structure back to my life, even in my workday. Like, I borrowed from a character in the book, one of the greatest living writers. She lights a candle to start her workday and blows it out to finish the workday and closes the door. And since I work at home, I would never shut down my workday. So I stole that from her. I use an electric candle though, because I have too much paper in my office. But, and that now that I mention it, I like my neighbor, Cal Newport, the author of Deep Work and Slow Productivity. He'll, at the end of his workday, he does like he's a computer science professor. He'll say system shutting down, and it seems silly, but when you have all that freedom, you actually need something to close the workday so that, just like an athlete in training, you can recover and be ready for the next hard bout the next day and to be there for your family and all those kinds of things.
And I want to bring this right down to some basic mechanics, David. And he gets into one of his chapters which scared the living daylights out of me. It's why I've really curtailed a lot of my excessive use of social media in particular. And it's the human brain and its capacity to absorb and deal with and hold and process information, in contrast to what our smartphones can do or home Wi-Fi. Let me just paint some numbers, and then David, I'll ask you to reflect on this with me. Firstly, when it comes to storing data, to holding memories, those sorts of things, and we compare the human brain with a lot of our technology, you might be shocked to know the human brain actually wins hands down. So a conservative estimate of how much the human brain can hold in memory is 1 petabyte, which is about 1,000 terabytes, or if you prefer gigabytes, that's about 1 million gigabytes. That's what we can hold. Optimistically, though, some researchers say the brain can hold 2.5 times more than that. That is a lot of data. An iPhone 13 Max, for example, 512 gigabytes is all it could imagine, all it can hold. So that means the brain versus the iPhone ratio, our brain could hold 2 to 5 million times more in storage than a phone. Absolutely amazing. And in fact, it shocked me from Pan Macmillan. If you held all the information on the entire internet in 2016, that's about the same ballpark of how much data our human brain is capable of holding. Now, at this point, we might think, well, what's the problem? Steve, going on about your constraints and being careful about what you focus on. Here's the problem. The speed our brain processes this information is one factor to bear in mind. So this is where technology leaves our brain behind. According to a Caltech study in 2024, human conscious thought, so our working, thinking mind, can process 10 bits of information per second. That's 10 chunks of information, 10 individual things that we're holding at one time per second. Our sensory system, though, so not conscious thought where we can speak it back to you, but sensory, the deeper understanding, we're absorbing about 100 million to 1 billion bits per second. The iPhone, though, the M2 chip, the MacBook Air, 1.7 trillion bits per second. It's a lot more than average home Wi-Fi, about 262 million bits. But if you look at it that way, we just don't have that processing speed to go through the data. But that's not the worst bit. This is the thing that is really the stranglehold. And it is this: what can we hold in our conscious thought at any one time? It's one thing to be able to have that information come through, but how long, how many things can we play with at one time? George Miller in 1956 came up with what is well accepted now, that we can hold typically 7 chunks of information in our head at one time, plus or minus 2. And if you've been with me making websites, that's why I always argue that the number of menu items across the top of a web page should be about 7 plus or minus 2 for that very reason. Modern research, looking at when we're dealing with new things, says we can really hold about 3 to 4 chunks of information at one time. And there's a time limit though. We can hold those in our brain, but in about 2 or 3 seconds they decay. So this uses a lot of energy from our brain. So, David, after that little bit of geeking out with those numbers, we've got a lot of storage, but it's the holding and the processing of them where technology leaves us for dead. Why does this make the stakes so high for what we point our attention to?
Largely because all the technology pointing at us can flood us with information faster than we can decide if it's worth thinking about it or engaging with it. So if we're constantly in the cycle of going, oh, is that interesting? Is that worthwhile? Oh, there's the next thing. That's where the 3 hours of cat photos happens. Or the 5 hours of YouTube. Because we just go, oh, we're absorbing as much as we can absorb. There's barely time to process, and at the end of it, we've been entirely dictated to by the technology, but we haven't deliberately done anything that we might have valued if we'd stopped, sat quietly and gone, what do I want to do with limited time and resources?
I remember, I don't know if it was a cynical journalism video or a training one in media relations in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was something like, in the newsroom, if we don't have much news one day, deliver it like it's real news and people will listen anyway. And this is even worse now. So what you're saying, David, is we're getting bombarded with so much information. The brain, because we've gone to it, we're addicted, we're connected to these devices, go there, we use that finite energy to work out whether it's worth our time or not. And by that point, it's too late. We've already spent our allowance.
Yep, and we're cycled into the next new thing, and we have to start our cycle again, or we just learn to go with the flow, to spend the time and at the end have no real idea what we consumed or why. With that probably, I think, comes a lot of anxiety about, hang on, was I paying attention? What did I see? Why am I feeling uncomfortable for sitting still for so long? Why am I feeling empty? We haven't connected with a human for 5 hours. Like, there's so many bad consequences of being dragged along by an information stream that's not giving us anything at a pace we value or with content we care about.
In the journalism world, an editor used to play that role in deciding what would be put in front of us, and that was the first filter for us. And in the fleeting moments when we've had good editors and good publications, that's been a gift to society. In today's age, the mantra is give everyone everything, let them do it themselves, let them do your own research, etc. And we're just not geared up for that, because you just learn a few tricks, as we're going to talk about, I think, in the next episode. You can just dismantle, like as that quote says, if we're not engineering our time in this age, if we're not putting those hard limits on ourselves, our time will be managed for us without any problem whatsoever. And that scares the living daylights out of me. It means we have less time for making good decision making. And the worst thing about this is we're being trained to take a massive information, dump it into AI to sort it out. What's it missing the nuance on that we're never going to be wise about? Because we haven't had the capability to sit with the discomfort and put the energy in to discern something important. I feel just like AI reduces everything to the average, to the mean, I feel society is heading that way if we aren't aware of this and take some action. What do you think, David? Am I over-egging that omelette?
No, I think this is the problem of overwhelm, is with overwhelm comes a desire to just reduce the sense of pressure, reduce the sense of not knowing what's going on, and to just float free. And floating free with a system that benefits someone else, the person who made the tech, the person who made the app, means not only do we lose our sense of being able to do work, but also who are we, who do we want to be, how do we want to behave in the world?
We are just rushing faster and faster, running on ice.
Yeah, further and further away from us deciding what we value, what we want to do, and why we want to do it.
Which then disconnects us from having a big goal, a vision, a dream, a value that we're aiming towards, which we know from Viktor Frankl's work in Man's Search for Meaning is one way to stay sane in this world and have a satisfying life is to have something outside of ourselves, bigger than us. The other thing where the rubber hits the road with too much choice, too much information, is sliding versus deciding. And he talks about in the book how if we continue, and we've been trained by the world now to keep options open. Adelaide is one of the worst markets for this, especially if you do theatre, people or run workshops. People do not commit until minutes or hours before, just in case. He argues that this whole mindset of keeping options open, particularly with dating apps, where you can, I'm just going to keep looking, keep swiping, you never know, it undermines relationship satisfaction, either the one you're in or the one you might try and start kindling. It is saddening. We're aware of this, and yet no one seems to be stopping it.
Yeah, if we don't show commitment to the things we do and the people we interact with, why would they show commitment back? So we want the world to be committed to us. We want the world to listen. We want the world to engage. We want the world to be ready there waiting for us. Guess what? If we're not committed to people in the world, why would it slow down or care about us?
So to bring this segment to a practical end for the person, for all of us, I guess I come back to him, and he's talking about Herbert Simon's wonderful concept of satisficing. So when you make a decision, you can either maximize, and it's got to be perfect on all counts, and, well, happy life to you, not, or you satisfice, which is something that, you know, it's satisfactory, it satisfies your core needs, it's good enough. He's arguing that we should hold that as a great standard in life, is to satisfies. What does that look like in reality?
A big part of Herbert Simon is recognizing that you need to decide with each thing, am I satisfying here or am I maximizing? So breakfast cereal for the average person who's not training for the Olympics satisfies. Basic nutritional, sort of endpoint. If you're training for the Olympics, different. It's contingent on who you are and what you're trying to achieve. But human relationships, do you really want satisfying human relationships? If you're going to spend the little bit of money you've saved to buy something, to go on a holiday with your family, do you want to satisfy on that thing that's so important? Or do you want to maximize there? What will you satisfy on to free the resources to maximize on something that's more important? It's all about actually taking the time to slow down and go, what do you value? What can you sacrifice here for something more valuable later? And it's where, Simon's research is so significant, that people who endlessly maximize, want the perfect version of everything, are miserable and get very little done.
And we did say AI earlier in this conversation. This is probably a useful place, whereas if you've got a reliable tool and you want to make a decision and you decided that a satisficing outcome will do, and you're not sure how to go about that, David, you wouldn't disagree with me if I said, open up Perplexity or Gemini or whatever you're using and say, look, can you please help me find a satisficing way forward on this thing that I'm weighing up?
Yep.
And then it will help you, it will tease out with you what are the elements of this decision. Like when I bought a car a couple of times back, I did this where cost of petrol, how much it was using, cost of the vehicle, all those things. And I gave them a little bit of a weighting, put in the different cars I found, and made a great decision. It was a satisficing decision.
One of the things I really like in the Epstein book is an exercise he gives for this, and I can't remember where the exercise comes from, but it's once you've narrowed it down, to which thing is the satisficing conclusion, ask yourself the question, if this was the only option available, would I be happy? Like if you didn't know you were giving up those other options, if the car you've actually got was the only one you could have afforded, the only one that was available, would you be happy? And more often than not, your answer is you'd probably be happier because you wouldn't have the sense of missing out.
My last 2 bobs worth on this is the concept of monotasking. You might be pleased to know, David, that I am trying hard to apply this instead of having 3 or 4 jobs in my brain at once, which we've just learned at the beginning of this is a complete waste of time. I am monotasking. And one thing to help me where the world is against you is having a number of browser tabs open. I still do that, and I don't care about that. But it's the browser tabs for my Google inbox, and I've got 3 different Google inboxes and social media because they show numbers if there are new notifications or unread. So you can be working away and your eye will see the number has just changed and it pulls you towards it. Now, I use Chrome, and here's a trick that you can use. On tabs like that, you right-click on the tab and you choose Pin, P-I-N, Pin. It just moves it to the left-hand side of your browser tab, and it shrinks it down so you don't see any notification information. You know it's there, but nothing it does can trigger you to lose concentration and go there. It will wait until you're ready. That single thing, David, has empowered me greatly. It has conserved so much working memory.
Yep, you're not letting yourself be distracted by the machine. Yep. It's like turning our phones onto Do Not Disturb for an hour. To get an hour without bings and bongs, it makes such a difference.
My daughter just texted, let's just take a pause.
Our 4 Ps. Number 2, principles. These are ideas worth building on. As Oscar Wilde reminded us, you can never be overdressed or overeducated.
David, something David Epstein taught us was this. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Think like this. Act like this. Am I right?
Steve before coffee, Steve after coffee. I love it. I love the fact that this is one of the things in the book that he takes from one of the very senior people at Pixar. This idea of think slow, get as many of the mistakes out in the development curve. And it makes me think of the wonderful line, we didn't have time to do it properly, so we're finding the time to fix it.
Yeah, think slow, act fast.
So I was slower to start writing this time around. It took me longer to get to the phase where I started writing. But once I started writing, I executed really quickly because I understood the playing field. So this is what, in the book, the Danish researcher Bent Flubier, who studies projects, would call the good sequence for a project, for projects that are usually, in his case, that come in on time and on budget and deliver what they promised. Is think slow, act fast, meaning you have this small early stage where you're defining the problem, you're setting the boundaries, what are you doing? And then when you move into execution, you can do it more quickly. The opposite is where is think fast, act slow, where you have a big idea, you rush into execution, and then the lessons are going to be much more painfully acquired because you have momentum and all these things. And so I actually, in my first two books, well, the first one I needed an extension actually, so I didn't even make it by the deadline. The second one I turned in on 5 p.m. On the day of the contract. So I assumed that's what I was going to do again. And I finished, I had it a month early. I just sat for 2 weeks because I didn't know what to do. Like, does anybody turn in books early? So I would never not do it this way again.
And this kind of goes against the way the world is.
Yeah.
And we look for those fast, sharp decisions. We praise those people. They're the heroes. But really, you know what? Those big figures in history that really make the impact, they're the ones that have typically thought slow about something, and then they act quickly once they've made their decision.
It doesn't matter if you look at great philosophers, great scientists, great innovators, they're all the same. They put years into knowing their thing inside out. So when the good idea finally looks right, it's got past all the iterations, they're so ready to act, and they can seem so confident and so decisive that people are very easily persuaded to support them and invest in what they're doing because of the sheer certainty they've got, because they've done all the iterating before the experiment, before the physical iteration of what they've thought up.
And that's different from going slow in like certain corporations. With a website change, seems to take forever. And I think that's where someone might have made a decision, but they're acting slow. And that's not what he's on about. He's about thinking slow to get that right, so that what's left to do, you can gobble off quickly. I mean, some things might take longer than others, but at least everyone knows what they're meant to do at that point.
I think the key thing in that corporate example is the difference. Thinking slow is a form of risk management. You're looking for all the things that could go wrong and getting rid of them. Going slow every step is risk aversion. Oh, we couldn't possibly take any risk. We couldn't possibly do anything that we'd have to take blame for. We couldn't possibly do anything that would attract attention. And yet in the end, doing nothing is what attracts the attention because everyone ends up pissed off at the corporation.
So what does this look like? Because it's wonderful for us to reflect here, and we can apply this ourselves. But someone says, well, hang on, I've got this to do and I've got that to do. My team's expecting me to make decisions. How do we build in that mindset and expectation that think slow is actually the smartest way?
The way I used to explain it to students was, guys, I know you're not going to do any more work, but could you do a bit of that work earlier? This essay that you've got to hand up to me in 4 weeks' time, could you go and spend 2 hours doing initial research, reading and thinking tonight, and then do the rest the night before like usual?
And why? Why?
Because the 2 hours tonight is going to put some seeds in their brain that their brain's going to keep chugging. They're going to do that fast 2 hours tonight in System 1, but over the next month, they're going to do a little bit of System 2 every now and then of just slowly revisiting things, just for a minute here and there, and pulling things out of their memory and doing the slow processing, because the brain can only do slow processing. So, even in my post-academic life, now, with marketing work, with strategic business work, get a fast answer, take a day, look at your fast answer again and go, oh, I see that a bit differently today. Well, it's only due tomorrow, so I'll have another look tomorrow for 10 minutes. But you've looked at it 3 times. You haven't wasted 3 days, but you've looked at it 3 times. It's a much better way to give your brain time to catch up with the intuitive decision you make first, and find out with more of that slow background thinking if you can find all the things that are in your head that haven't possibly got a chance of making it to the surface if you decide and act right now.
It's funny, it reminds me of a conversation I was having with my 15-year-old, Caitlin, who does the voiceovers. She watched the movie Frankenstein, the 2025 movie, which is amazing, totally densely creative. Every single frame has been composed to within an inch of its life. It's magnificent. And we were talking about the book versus the movie, and I actually say this is one of those rare occasions where I feel the movie has gone to where Shelley possibly wanted to go, and it's the difference between a first draft and a second draft. We've had the best part of a century to reflect and accept the story, think deeply about the main themes, and then bring them to the surface. It's very rare that I'd ever say that, but this is one of those situations. And that's what we're talking about within a business context.
Exactly.
And it also is a pigeon pair with another thing he says about define what not to do. He argues that the hardest part of innovation is actually deciding which ideas do we abandon, which is the classic murder your darlings claim when you've got too many slides for a PowerPoint or too many features you want to add to something. This is what this beautiful, liberating awareness of the benefits of constraints, I think, brings to the table. Less actually can be more.
And less will become more because you will invest more in it.
So we're giving ourselves permission to actually take the foot off the accelerator a moment and look at the scenery around us, which could mean we enjoy more of the journey and possibly have an idea for somewhere else we want to get to.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. These are the marketing challenges keeping you up at night. As Oscar said, we ask questions for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity, no hidden agenda, just genuine interest in what's actually happening.
David, you're familiar with Google, the company that supposedly used to have a mantra, do no evil. You've heard of them?
I remember in 1999 first using them and going, maybe they mean it.
Well, if they've ever meant it,
Not no more.
they've truly just shot it to pieces with some of the latest changes. We've been hearing about this for a while, the gradual increase of AI within the Google search realm. And I shouldn't be too shocked because, let's face it, Google search has been broken for a long time. It's the reason why for the last probably almost 2 years now I've been using Perplexity as my Google because it's an AI-powered search tool that does multi-layered searches for me. It's not always 100% perfect, but it pulls things together and, not more often than not, 50-50, I will have what I need from what it says, and half the time I will click through to go to the destination site that was cited. So I think that's probably fair. That's like having a paid librarian acting on your behalf versus Google, which was, hey, whoever had the sleekest, sleaziest SEO creep working for them, doing every trick under the sun, is going to have a time at the top of search that you've got to wade through because the moment you click on them, you see it's junk and you've got to go through to the good, honest, proper people on page 2 or 3 or thereabouts. That might be a slight exaggeration, David, but I think it's around the mark.
Not too far past the truth.
Yes.
Like the first few, it's all right, how much have they paid? And could they just put that money into better content that helps me?
Yes. Instead of just trying to win the race of being on top.
Yeah.
That's to one side. What's happened now? Google has stopped trying to dance around the issue and say, we really care about small businesses. They've gone AI all the way. So Google search now is nothing other than talking to Gemini, which is Google's search tool, which does its own version of Perplexity, I guess you'd say, building an answer for you, showcasing a very small selection of links. I'm pretty sure from what I've seen, you're lucky if you get 5 organic links on each screen. The ads now typically, apart from the top one, get shunted onto the right-hand side of the screen if you're looking on a desktop. I'll give you one example, David, and then we'll dissect what this means for us in 2026 and beyond for trying to get found in search, if that's even a thing we care about. A dear friend, long-term client, well, I haven't really done much For a long time, they've been set up. They've been going beautiful. They're a fishing charter business up in Darwin. She emailed out of the blue saying, I think we've disappeared off the internet. The reason she asked is because she answered one of those pesky, horrible pitch calls from those sleazy SEO companies, scaring the living daylights out of her, saying, look, you're gone and we can meet on Friday and we'll set up a plan to get you number one on Google, blah, 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 blah. She said, what do I do? I said, well, first of all, cancel that appointment because they'll be shysters. That industry is full of them. And I had a look. And sure enough, David, you would be shocked. This business, which for a long time has been sitting around the front page of Google, not always one, but in the front page, honest business, been around for about 15 years, was nowhere to be seen. There was an aggregator site, Fish Now or Fish With Us, that was basically, I guess, other fishing charter sites pay to be part of it. They were in the number one position on the first 3 or 4 pages, paid and organic. Sort that out. And there were 2 other players who seemed to be in positions 2 and 3. There wasn't much else on all the first 3 or 4 pages. That was it. It was only page 4, 5 onwards where you started to see other businesses linked. You had your AI summaries at the top of the first page, and it was bleak, David. It was like The Day After. You know that movie, The Day After? That's what it's like in Searchland at the moment.
Yeah, it's such a cynical thing that here's Google pretending that AI means there's even better tools working to give you the answer to your question, whereas all it really is better smoke and mirrors for them to put the person that's paid them the most money in front of you.
And talking of the person, what's been announced in the recent I/O update, the big announcement that Google has for developers, let's break it down with a few things. First of all, to explain what's happening, and then we'll finish with some practical things you might want to do. The first thing is when a user does a search, they're going to get a customized personal answer. What do you mean by customized and personal, Steve? Well, Google, which is being run by Gemini, its AI tool, before it answers, is going to search what it knows about you from your previous history with it, from anywhere it's got its claws into. Are you a parent? Are you divorced? Have you just bought a car? Have you been searching a lot about, I don't know, back pain? It's going all of that. Where have you been visiting, etc., etc. And then we'll tailor whatever the answer is going to be on a topic with what it thinks is going to best fit your needs. And I think, David, you would say the ulterior motive is which of its advertisers is going to be the best place to exploit you. Satisfy your needs, I should have said. Yes. That was naughty of me, David. Yes. Naughty. So that's that one. But it's also making available these little search bots that we can start using. And we can set it up, these bots, to listen for certain things. We might be interested in certain things. And it will continually search for us and come back and give us answers. So they're really trying to make search now a chat and an AI chat sort of experience. What have I missed from that view of the land?
Well, I think the other side of this, and it may be something you wanted to talk about next, is we're now also getting the universal card. So anywhere you go on the internet, as long as you do it using Google, you'll just be able to tell your agent to go and buy all the things you put in your basket today. So it's really establishing itself almost like a form of social media where you just distractedly spend the day looking at products and services you might want to buy, put things in your cart, and at the end of the day, do a mega purchase where the agent goes away and makes sure all these things turn up at your house, all these services get delivered to you. So we've gone from a tool that wasn't entirely objective, but at least wasn't entirely subjective, to something that is now subjective and tailored specifically to who has paid Google the most money, where they're now trying to suck you in to never leave the page, just like most of the major social media companies.
You're still with me, though, that you would never allow an agent to have connection to your credit cards and do that on your behalf, or have you shifted?
No, I will happily let it, in a sense, maintain, put things in a cart for me, but then, okay, I would be like, agent, set up each page for me so that I can go in and I will put my card numbers in and buy each thing I want, or decide if I don't want to, keep them in my cart. So I don't mind it collating information, but the idea of telling it to go away and do all the transactions, no.
So what do we do about this if we want our website to be useful for us and for our potential customers? There are a number of things that can be done. There's also a lot of snake oil merchants out there already promising that they've got the answer. And if anyone promises, by the way, that they can make you number one, first of all, that's never been necessarily true. But now, how can it be when you don't know what all the different variables a human has that Google's going to see as it's building up its results? But that's a different topic. What do we do practically? Well, the first thing is, and David, you chip in as we go through here, the way we write the content on our pages at one level is probably a fundamental thing to look at. I will argue we still need to write for humans first. We need them to be catered for in a way. And that's why we do the whole story brand framework approach to shift our writing so it's relevant to our visitors. It's chalk and cheese to what is normally served up on a website.
Because in a state of desperation, which is what most companies are going to go into over the next 6 months, they're going to think it's all going to be all about saying how fabulous they are and what a great discount they're going to give you, missing the point that people will get the discount if they want it. What people want is their question answered and to be treated like they matter. And that psychologically, those things are more important than the deal. The deal on its own will get a few people, but treating people like they're an intelligent human doing research who wants to make a good answer and use their limited resources well, that builds trust, and trust can't ever be replaced in a commercial environment.
And a note to myself, Steve, put a link to our story brand framework explainer page in the show notes so anyone can click through and see what the hell we're talking about. That's one thing. But at the top of the page, almost like a preface, if you like, I think I don't think, it is now the time when we need to write a little entree for the AI machines to get their little snackable version of what's on the page. We called them answer nuggets, 30 to 50 words, thereabout. It's in non-fluffy language, very practical language to give them exactly what's on this page and what it's about. That's almost non-negotiable, David.
Yeah, because the better that is written, the more likely it turns up in the AI summary almost as you wrote it. And if it can go up almost as you wrote it, then it's much more likely to recommend your page to its human. So we've got to game the system here. They've gamed it long enough.
And I'm glad I've had to fight back I'll make your pages shorter for forever. No. But what you should do is make it chunked down into little chunks as you go, 120, 150 word
heading,
chunks.
paragraph, heading, paragraph,
Yes.
heading, paragraph.
And if you can, and you should, make the headings questions. I'm gradually going through and updating all of ours so that is the case, because that's how these AI tools are trained. They're trying to answer the questions that humans have, which is a great discipline for coming up with what your subheadings are throughout your body of work. What question does this next section answer? If it doesn't answer a question, why are we writing it? So this is a very broad brush approach, but I just want to give some hope and some practical things you can do. There's also a document called an LLMS.txt file for the large language model. And what it is a little plain text document that really succinctly, it's like the greatest hits of your business. It tells the agent, because humans won't read this, who you are, who you serve, what you do, and it gives it links to the most important relevant pages on your topic, of your business. Not everything. We want to go with the greatest hits that we've got so that the AI tools, just like, how you can get those pain tablets, some of them that fizz and dissolve so they get into your bloodstream faster. We want that version of your website, not the solid tablet that's got to sit in your gut for a while. Would you agree, David?
Look, anything that means on a first pass, the AI decides it wants to read the whole website is the critical thing.
Another thing is having schema code throughout the website, and talk to your web developer, talk to us, whoever you're talking to put this into place. And that's just a universal language that these search tools and AI tools use to know what type of page this is. Is it a product page? Is it an accommodation page? Is it a booking page? Is it a news article page? Is it a frequently asked questions page? There's a whole language of schema with all these agreed upon terms. Every page on our websites needs to be categorized in that way because it just helps the tools understand at a split second what the page is.
Also, it's how they build trust that when we tell them something is something, it's what it is. So the more you don't use those things reliably and consistently, the less veracity the AI tool thinks your website has.
Yeah. There are some other things, but I think those are the major things at this point in time that we can do just to make it easy. I liken it to this. If you're caring for someone who is elderly or unwell or a little child, you chop their food up for them so they can digest it faster and more safely. That's what we're doing for the AI tools. What do you think of that analogy, David?
As long as we don't put the food in the blender, I think we're still okay.
Blender? My lunch is still in the microwave. Oh, heck.
Our 4 Ps. Number 4, perspicacity. Let's examine a campaign from the past and ask, would it work today? As Oscar Wilde believed, our one duty to history is to rewrite it. So let's see what we can learn.
In Perspicacity, we love to look at old ads and see how they stand up today. Well, I think it's on topic, David, that we look at some original Google search ads when it was a pure company.
Well, that's an interesting one because they didn't do any multimedia ads, for their first 11 years. So in the bit where the company actually seemed to genuinely be abiding by its motto,
Yes.
they only had these boring, simple text ads, which
Yes.
are not so exciting for us to talk about now.
No, that's right. So we'll talk about their first TV ads that they had. And it started with the Super Bowl ad in 2010, which was called Parisian Love. Let's have a listen to it. And I'll talk over this one, David, because it's all visual. The person is typing in where to go abroad, Paris, then things to do. It wants to go to the Louvre and misspells that and then gets that corrected. It's showing all the different features, but through this person's journey, some woman, it seems, a lovely woman, has said something in French about you looking cute, and so they're able to translate what that means, buy chocolates. Then they Google how to handle a long-distance love affair, and midway through that, cross it out and say, look for jobs in Paris, and then they get a job, and then it's looking for a crib because they're married, etc.
Well, it's a church in the middle.
Yeah, there's a church in the middle. So I've talked over that, but you'll see the ad on our show notes. Another one that has a bit more narrative to carry it, we'll have a listen to this straight away. It's from 2013. Mum getting ready for work, a little kid coming in and saying, I need a school costume today.
It's Dead President Day.
Let's wait. Honey, what are you doing? We gotta go.
It's dressed like a President Day. I'm supposed to be Martin Van Buren.
Who?
Martin Van Buren.
Google. Martin Van Buren.
All right, so there we are. That's the pure example of search, because in both of those ads, David, when you did the search, you would then get some places to choose from where you would then go, and that business would win or not win your business.
You were treated as if you had some agency.
Now, what went wrong, I think there's a lot of blame on both sides. You start getting the emergence of these creepy, sleazy SEO companies who just see a way to just I wanted mine and all mine. And instead of just trying to earnestly help someone get found when it's relevant, they did all the tricks in the book. They put white text on white background so that Google would read it, but humans can't. So they could keyword stuff pages, and then Google would fight back and destroy that trick. And so you had the next 10, 15 years of this hideous, toxic playground where the actual end user was totally forgotten. It became, pardon the topic, but it was like men bragging about how big their appendices were and having that sort of race with each other to win number one slot and to heck with any value that might come of it. That's how it felt like to me. David, was I a bit ribald with that example?
No, when you meet sort of the really sleazy SEO people, they are a species of their own.
But then you have Google going, well, it's not so bad that those people are ruining it for everyone else, because come here, business person, give us some money and we'll put your ads at the top of search. So I think it actually was a symbiotic relationship.
It strikes me at the moment that if AI was going to be sufficiently valuable and Google believed they could make money out of AI as a useful tool, would they be using the useful tool to manipulate humans to essentially have less agency? Like, this to me is the ultimate admission that Google doesn't believe AI is going to make it money and that it still has to manipulate people.
So that it can
make money. Yeah.
It's very sad. So these ads, I mean, these are not going to work today because it would be a violation of the Trade Practices Act, because that is definitely not what you're getting. So it's almost a moot point to ask whether they'd work today. I mean, would they? I've just answered that on your behalf, but do you agree? Could they run these ads? I mean, when you've got politicians who are doing one thing, could be destroying parklands or whatever they're doing, but then speaking a totally different thing and just keeping it on what they're doing the whole time, maybe a company like Google could just say, look over here, don't look at what we're actually doing.
I think these days they'd almost read like a nostalgia ad.
Wow, wouldn't it?
And be like, oh, I remember when Google was actually like that, when it just gave me answers and I didn't felt like I was being pointed to someone who'd paid a lot of money. Because in that period you did use it, and more often than not, you could very easily avoid the ads and feel that you were reading a thing that seemed to answer your question pretty well, and it didn't seem like it had just been placed there because someone paid. So really, they strike me now as, remember when the internet was this place that was helpful for humans.
Just to be fair, there were businesses who started thinking, we'll just do some tricky writing to get people in. You had the SEO businesses going, we'll just literally deceive people and make money. And you got Google saying, you keep them busy because we'll scoop up the money when people have to pay to play. And I think society loses out because it became junk coming up in search.
Yep.
So we have to watch this space. Please don't lose heart. I realised that there's been some fodder that could lead people to lose some mojo, David, in what we've covered today. It is a changing time. I mean, times are always changing, but it seems to be more in flux now than ever was. I think we all need to, I'm talking to myself here, keep our eye on the humans we're trying to service and be helpful to. Be earnest in the way we write and smart. The story brand framework is what helps us do that. And do dutifully the technical things we need to do to play the game the best we know at this point in time, noting it could change next week.
And remember that if you slow down just a little bit and decide, what do I want to do and how do I want to do it? And then re-engage once you've made a decision about what you value and what you want to achieve, you'll get a much better outcome than if you let yourself be pushed around by the technology demanding you to go with the flow.
And let's start by stopping this podcast now. Hit stop. Don't even listen to the end credits. Buy back a minute of your time.
Thanks for listening to Talking About Marketing. If you found this helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. And if you're so inclined, leave a rating in your podcast app. Both help more than you think. Steve and David welcome your thoughts, which you can send to podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. That's podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. Want to continue the conversation beyond the podcast? You can book 20 minutes with Steve at talkedaboutmarketing.com. No cost, no obligation. And we'll leave the last word to Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.